Hello, I am Magdalena Hanna, the Social Media Facilitator and Campaigns Coordinator for Samick Music. I am delighted to be involved in promoting the activities of Samick Music as well as the recordings, publications and educational resources the company has to offer. In my newly appointed position, working for Samick Music and supporting Victoria's intention to expand the enhanced learning resources, I am particularly excited to be coordinating this wonderful project that Victoria and Chris have created for you all. So, without further ado, I am delighted to introduce Victoria Samick, Director of Samick Music. What is this whole project about?
Well, I'm going to go back to the beginning and actually talk a little bit about Samick Music and how it started, and then how we've got from there to here, sitting in a shared webinar, which I think for Chris and I is a brand new experience, slightly nail biting, but we're looking forward to developing our skills online. Samick Music started, in fact, as a recording company, clarinet and saxophone classics, actually originally clarinet classics, developing into clarinet and saxophone classics. It then developed into publications. But educational and enhanced learning resources is something that I've felt very, very strongly about. And I wanted to sort of integrate, to create a company that integrates not only the recordings and the publications, but also the potential to develop the learning resources. And that's basically how Samick Music then came into being. Within the publications and the recordings, we have a resource of fantastic artists and composers. And this is where Chris Jolly came in. We started our relationship together as cohorts in Reed Play, a saxophone quartet, and we did some recordings together. But our relationship developed, and particularly through his compositions, and then that extended into the educational side, and we started talking about various projects, and I felt that Chris's skills were so fantastic, not only recognizing his artistic and compositional skills, but also his commitment to education, and indeed his role as senior manager of an instrumental hub. And I was really delighted when he accepted my invitation to become creative consultant in education for Samick Music. Over to you, Chris.
So yeah, wow. Well, just to echo what Victoria said there, what I've tried to do since in my career in music is have quite a wide variety of different things. So I've always tried to stay involved with performing. It's been very important to me. Composition. I did a master's in composition, so that was always going to be important to me. And most recently, I think I've developed, certainly over the last 10 years, I've developed a real passion for education. And as Victoria said, I'm part of Tameside Music Service, which is part of one of the largest music hubs in the country, the Greater Manchester Hub, in which I do lots of collaboration work with other music services, and lead quite a strong team of tutors within Tameside Music Service as well, delivering music tuition not only to schools but to adults and to the wider community as well. It's been an absolutely fantastic experience working with Samick Music and Victoria in particular, because I've been able to focus in on all of those things that mean so much to me. The performing aspect of, as Victoria's just said, the clarinet and saxophone quartet that we played in called Reed Play, the publications side of the company as well, which I've been involved in since the very start. I think about 5 years that's been going now. And Victoria is one of the main reasons why I keep churning more music out. It's always great to have a reason to write music, whether that's for Victoria to play it, or Victoria's just asked me to get something on the website to be promoting my own music. It's really exciting part of the company. And then this new area, education, just ticks the final box for me. Really, it's a fantastic thing to be involved in, and I'm really looking forward to having another platform to be able to show off or give you other people my knowledge, really, and tell other people about what I want to tell them, really.
That was so interesting. Thank you. So let's get back to the question. What is this project really about, Victoria?
Well, as you've already seen, I am actually notoriously bad, perhaps like a politician, at answering a question directly. So before I fully answer the question, I'm going to go back a little bit and talk about why and how this whole project came into being. We're living within the constraints of a serious pandemic, something that none of us in our lifetimes, even at my age, have ever experienced. And this is creating a major problem, particularly for motivation. So we've all been looking at ways of sustaining motivation, keeping purpose. And when practice seems purposeless because there are no lessons to work for, there's no rehearsals or there's no concerts. And that for many people is really, really difficult and challenging. So the idea, and now I finally come to your question, what is the purpose and how did this project come into being? For me and my practice, the focal point is the warm up. To me, the warm up is about keeping physical fitness, keeping mental fitness, keeping intellectual fitness. It's all about keeping connected also with the instrument. So, and in doing this, actually creating a purpose and clear goals. I did a master's in performance science, and I think that enhanced what was already there and my systematic way of learning and playing. And in this way, this is part of what I will be communicating in my tutorials. We've decided to highlight 3 areas: scales, exercises, and slow pieces. And within this series, which we have called Customise Your Warm-Up, we're going to integrate between Chris and I the various different ways that we both approach our warm-up. Chris, what would you like to add to this?
Yeah. So I mean, it's been really interesting actually working with you, Victoria, because um, the number of numerous conversations that we've had building this project. What I really like is that we can bounce ideas off each other, but we both have quite different approaches to some things as well, and have both had varying degrees of success with different ways of teaching as well. And I find that really, really fascinating, because I work with a lot of students of different abilities, from those who are picking up the instrument for the very first time to university students. And even myself, I class myself as still a learner, obviously, so I have to continue to teach myself. And I think it's a very important point that you make about motivation as well. That motivation is relevant for the student who's just picking up the instrument for the first time, whatever their age, and through to someone who's at universities, through to someone who's working with a professional orchestra or working as a professional musician, and myself included in that. I have to keep myself motivated. So one of the great things I think about this project for me is being able to share the things that I do to keep myself motivated, and share that with people. As you've mentioned, the 3 subjects being scales, exercises, and slow melody. For me, scales is one of the most difficult things to get students to engage with, because, yeah, let's be honest, they are a little bit dull. So one of the things that I've really enjoyed of putting the first film together, or the first video together, is finding all of these different things that I do almost without thinking about it, just to keep myself interested. And I think it's that I'm really excited to share with people. It's been a brilliant opportunity, this, to get all of that down on paper almost, or within a presentation, and just be able to give other people that knowledge of or those things that I've built up over time. And hopefully some people will find things useful. Some people might be able to grab hold of that thing that I introduced to them, and make it their own. And that's what I want. And that's what we all want as educators. We want to give our students the tools to be able to build themselves, or do the work between the lessons. I think that's the most important thing out of this. So that's what I'm really excited about this whole project, is the sharing aspect, what I've learned, what I've built up, and being able to share that with many people.
Fantastic. Can you give a reason to why you chose to take different approaches to customizing your music warm-up? Victoria?
Okay, well, I will try and be succinct. Not one of my strong cards. But as I mentioned, 4 years ago, I graduated with a performance science master's, something that I would have thought impossible for me, a musician, a trained musician, dedicated to my music all my life. Academia was the last thing I had in mind. But as I became more and more curious in terms of being more effective, not only in my practice and in my performance, but in supporting other students, and most particularly in my role, which was incredibly interesting, my 7.5 years with the training the musicians at Kneller Hall at the Royal Military as clarinet and saxophone professor, and dealing with the really acute anxieties in performance, as well as sustaining motivation in practice when sometimes that could be quite a challenge. And these, along with my other teaching experience, really combined to make me feel that I wanted to understand more and give a more kind of informed um, approach to what is it about purpose and motivation, and also most critically process. And it might seem for many, and performance science is a new topic, it might seem that science has so little to do with playing, but actually science is so much a part of music. And you know, it's no coincidence that many scientists are actually fabulous musicians as well. But actually understanding is everything. So I think what will be very interesting in collaborating with Chris on this project is that my approach is going to be very much about the process of playing scales, the elements that, whether it's scales or exercises or the slow pieces, the idea that actually there is a process behind a warm up, a structured warm up, and that there needs to be a lot of organization to manage this. This, in fact, you will be getting a little bit of a taster over these last 4 years. I've actually, in my further research, been developing a new process, which actually is called Organize, Prioritize, Commit, the process for practice performance. So, which will be officially launched in the autumn. But you will get little tasters of this process during the course of this tutorial. And most critically, that the wonderful, wonderful knowledge from science does not have to stay in books and is not just the domain of academia. That science, that research is there for us performers, to use and to utilize, to help us be more effective performers, more effective musicians, and actually get a lot more fulfillment from our practice. Because in the end, if we're going to invest time in warm-ups, we're going to invest time in developing ourselves as musicians, whether it's our profession or whether we're doing it as it were for pleasure, there is a lot of investment of time, and we want that time to be fruitful. And in my approach, I will be giving you some little tips from science and how that can really help you to be to basically be more effective, and indeed to customize your music warm up. So with that, with that introduced, it's really great to have Chris, who's going to be a little bit more involved in the other side. Chris, so in contrast to my science approach, tell us a bit about your side.
Yeah, so I think to pick up on something that Magdalena's just mentioned there, which is we chose different approaches and where those different approaches come from. And I think one of the main things is through influence and experience. And maybe if I could just relate that to my experience of writing music composition from a compositional point of view. I always try to write what I like to listen to and listen to what I like to write. And those two things are very, very closely linked. And I think that same thing comes out within the education side as well. So I'm very heavily influenced on my experiences as a learner, as a how I learn, and through my teaching as well. So through my experience of teaching, if I found that something's been quite successful with a certain student, then I will pick up on that and I'll develop that area a little bit further. And then to pick up on your point, Victoria, how I will differ from that. I mean, I've my experience of listening to you speak about this scientific approach to music, and yes, I fully understand that it's really really important. It's not something that I've gone into much detail on, but what I will do is try and bring in some tips that can from a practical side point of view. So to give you an example, the scales is a huge subject. Where do you start? How am I going to tell people how to practice the scales in a warm-up? Well, I'm not going to be able to do that, and certainly not in this series of tutorials. So what I've decided to do is focus on the circle of fifths and how that can be used as a tool to implement structure, and that kind of links in with what you're talking about, Victoria, structure, and to keep that momentum within a practice session. So I'm going to look at different ways that you can adjust that circle of fifths or use that circle of fifths to implement practicing your scales, whether that's just simply moving around the circle of fifths, obviously adding sharps or flats, either way that we go. But I'm going to look at ways that I have edited that circle of fifths and different things that come to the fore when you're looking at that. So and from a visual point of view as well. So more often than not, we'll sit or we'll get to a practice session. Oh, I must start to practice my scales now. Well, where do we start? What is pointing you in the direction of I'm going to start here and I'm going to work around that part of my technique today. So that's what I'm going to do to start with, and hopefully use that sort of model within the scales for the continuing tutorials as well.
Some really interesting points there, thank you. So my last question, to whom do you feel this Customise Your Warm-Up course is directed towards? Students, professionals, or players of all abilities?
I think for me, it's for anyone who wants to continue learning. And I think that's pretty much everybody who's involved in music. I'm hoping that the way that we're pitching this is that somebody will be able to get something out of it, whoever they are. So I'm even inviting some of my students to get involved with this. I'm sure they'll recognize a lot of the things that I talk about because I teach them and I go through this with them in lessons. But also colleagues. My colleagues, obviously, I speak to Victoria quite a lot, but my colleagues at the music service and other players that I play with in other groups, I ask them all the time what they think of my ideas and my approach to things, and the number of questions that come back are always really inspiring, actually, and always help me move the way that I deliver things or the way that I present things in a slightly different way. So for me, it's for absolutely everybody. I think picking up on a point that Victoria mentioned before about the motivation, I think that's even more important than ever at the moment with diaries being wiped. I mean, it's just crazy what's going on. Even rehearsals, people can't even rehearse together. And I'm sure missing that social interaction with other musicians. I mean, yeah, it's great that we've got all of this technology available to us and we can do this, but there's nothing that can get you away from performing in the same room as another musician. There's certainly nothing that can replace that for me. So at the moment, I think it's really important, as Victoria said, to keep that motivation. What is going to get you up in the morning and make you pick your instrument up? And that is what I'm hoping people are going to get out of this. They're going to have a reason to stick this YouTube clip on and think, well, what have you got to say? Let me give it a try. It's certainly something I do. I mean, I'm forever getting lost in black holes on YouTube, silly o'clock in the morning, and trying to find some inspiration for me to do something different. And I'm hoping that this will find a place within them videos as well, and someone will get something out of it. So for me, it's for everybody who wants to find a little bit of motivation or wants to find that new way of learning something, or a new way to pick something up. That's certainly what it is for me anyway. I don't know about yourself, Victoria.
you bring up a really interesting word, and actually I hadn't thought of it till you brought it up, and I think it's super important, and that is about the word you used, inspiration. And I think that can sometimes be quite a tickly word when motivation is basically taking a hit. I think that if we have clear goals, clear targets, people might think that that's quite restrictive, that over structuring can restrict and impede almost the artistic and the inspirational side. And in a sense, I almost sort of go back to the science side, because I think while sometimes whether going into doing our warm-up or our main part of our practice, we might feel really inspired and therefore motivated to do it, there are many times, and I certainly know myself, when, you know, whether it's other work sort of pressures, or, you know, or some demotivation is causing me to sort of find any excuse in the book not to go in to do my warm-up or to do my practice. Actually having clear goals, clear structure, clear targets is the thing that gets me into the music room. Right, I'm going to start off with my scales. That we've got a clear structure, I keep coming back to that word, and clear goals in what I'm going to do, the purpose, the process, and that actually can be all it takes to then the sort of the inspiration and that other side will follow. And that's why I feel that as we work together and we look at the three components, scales, exercises, and slow warm up, these are absolutely, as you say, applicable to every level, every age, whether it's your main, what you do in life, whether you're a teacher, it is absolutely applicable to all those who want to get the most out of their playing and to actually have a structured warm up. So you might be someone who's really newly started and is going through Learn As You Play, or one of the, you know, still learning your notes. You can use these three elements. You could be somebody midway through your grades and you're thinking, why do I have to learn scales? I don't know when the next exam will be, or your study, that you will have a purposeful way of using these. You could be a teacher, you could be coming back to an instrument after a long break. You could have just left college and you're thinking, where now, particularly with everything going with this unprecedented time we're living under at the moment. It's actually about you setting your targets so that you, in a sense, almost become your audience. So you are fulfilling your criteria, you're fulfilling your goals, so that it's not making me or you, Chris, redundant as teachers or coach or whatever, you know, all the different roles that we take, but actually it's putting you, the player, more in the driving seat, so that actually when lessons do come back, you will actually, Chris, you talked about a little bit earlier, that bit between the lessons. You know, I mean, let's face it, most people, if you're having regular lessons, you've got 6 days when you're on your own. So perhaps I always like to turn negatives into positives. And one of those could be that you get to the end of the summer and you're actually feeling a lot better about your scales. You've got some really effective warm-ups, exercises that are giving, that you're really noticing your fingers are more nimble. And for those wind players, that slow exercises and you're suddenly managing your breath and your tone control has really increased. It is a form of fitness, and we know that the feeling of accomplishment after going for a run, or, you know, what used to be my my regular pursuit of doing my swimming lengths in the morning, you know, you really get a fantastic feeling of doing that. So so in answer to your question, Magdalena, absolutely, it's there for everybody. You can translate everything that Chris and I say. So I think we're probably coming to the end of this. I think we could probably both speak on this topic, and we, the three of us, might well actually have a webinar at the end of this. I think the other thing that I will say on behalf of us all is that as we develop these this learning platform and technical skills, this has been quite a challenge for us. But I think, you know, if any positives can come out of this unprecedented pandemic that we're in, and that is the ability that that we have to extend our knowledge, you know, across not only the students that we know and not only in the UK, but actually worldwide, and share our knowledge, as Chris said. And to that effect, I would like to make a small announcement, if you like, that Chris and I are both available for one-to-one tuition. We're available also for one-to-one coaching, even if you have an instrumental teacher, that we can support you in any particular way. And that information will be available both on the Samick Music website, and in fact the information will be under the thumbnail, I believe, in YouTube. But I hope that really very much that you will join us in this series of tutorials, and again to echo what Chris says, that we have the opportunity to share our knowledge and motivate you into a purposeful way that you truly can customize your music warm-up. Thank you, the three of you, three of us, three of you, for joining us.
Thank you.